No one can tell you what you can or cannot do, with no rules to follow. This adventure, it's up to you.
So recently I did a poll asking what I should do for 10,000 subscribers, and 43% of you wanted a Minecraft edit tutorial. I guess it's not too surprising, seeing as it's my most viewed video. So I'll be going over how to make a full edit like that in After Effects, in the TikTok slide style. I don't even know what it's called. But it's a simple style, and I think it's a good stepping stone for those who want to get into editing. And as a bonus, it gets all the views. I know this is a Minecraft edit tutorial, but I think it goes without saying that this can be applied to whatever you want. Like, it doesn't just have to be Minecraft. And you can also do this in most editing softwares, like DaVinci, CapCut, Lightmotion. All the same steps will apply. So I'll try and keep this more beginner friendly as well, explaining everything that I'm doing. And I'll probably go over some things along the way that I think can be helpful. So yeah, almost all edits can be broken down into 6 main steps. The first one being clip selection and syncing, then Twixtor and Timeremapping, transitions, effects, text, and finally color correction and bars. I'll be going over all these sections in this video, and I left timestamps in the description if you want to skip around. So to begin, we're going to make a new composition. In the actual edit, I did it in 4K, but for this one I'm just going to leave it in 1080p because it will be easier to just scrub through the timeline. And yeah, 60 FPS is what I used, and duration 1 minute is fine. Now we're just going to import your footage and your audio. So I already have it all here, but I'll just bring it in. So now, starting off with the audio, I'm just going to show you how to get the slowed audio that I used. So this is just a regular ARIA math, which is just downloaded from YouTube. I had a lot of people asking me like, oh, what's the song name? What's the song name? And it's like, it's in the description, but I'm assuming they're asking for the version. All I did was slow it down to 80%. So you want to go right click, time stretch, and then change it to 125. That's like 80%. So now it's slowed it down to the same speed. So that's basically it. But if you want to add some reverb as well, you can search for reverb. Oh, by the way, this search thing that I'm using is called FX Console. I think it's free. You can just download it from Google. Yeah, add some reverb. You can increase the wet out, which will make it a little bit more echoey, like 15%. And then you can search for like bass and treble. Increase the bass to like 50. This will give you the slowed and reverbed effect that some people want. I'll leave a link to the actual audio file that I used along with a bunch of other stuff. But for this edit, I'm just going to use a different slowed version because potentially I might be able to avoid copyright, maybe. So I'm just going to now cycle through the audio. So you can split it with Control-Shift-D and then cycle through to the part that you want. So I'll just do that now. Okay, so I've found the part that I want. So now we're going to mark our beats. You can add a marker by either pressing this little key on the side here, or you can press star on the numpad. I actually don't have a numpad, so I just rebound it, going to edit keyboard shortcuts. Then you can search marker and then change it, like mine's N. So the way I mark my beats is just listen to it and then just smash my N key as I hear the audio. So I'll just go through and do that. So that's basically a rough run through of it, but you can go through and look at the waveform and like adjust the beats later. So that seems pretty good. We're now just going to do the whoosh, which is what happens when the edit starts. So you can just grab like a regular swoosh sound effect. I actually have 2 of them here, a build up and a swoosh. So you can double press L again to bring up the waveform, and we're just going to align these with the peak of the audio of each of the sound effects with the start of the first keyframe. Okay, so there's that, and now we just want to adjust the audio down. Like, you don't want to have your sound effects too loud. Something like that's pretty good actually. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the audio. So now moving on to the clips. This is just a scene pack that I made. I think it's using BSL shaders. I've also got a 4K version here. Both of them, the 4K and the 1080p version, will be left in the description to a Google Drive link. Anyone can download it. You can do whatever you want with it. This is what I'm going to be using for the edit tutorial anyway. Just saying, the format that I'm using for this scene pack is DNx HD. So what I usually do for my scene packs is I'll download the entire episode and then cut it up in DaVinci Resolve and then export it in ProRes or DNx HD, which are lossless codecs, because whenever I use MP4 for some reason, I get like render glitches. Just saying, in case that happens to you. So what I'm gonna do is just split my clips along each of the beats. So now I've basically lined up all my clips. So we can just scrub through on the right here and then cycle where we want our clips to be. So I'm just going to go to the first frame and find the parts that I want to use. So for example, like this one here, and then I'll go to the next one, and then I'll start dragging it through, starting with this one. And you just want to find the ones that you think will line up well together or that you like. So I'm going to go through and do that for all the rest of the clips, and I'll get back to you when it's done. So I've basically finished with the clip selection and syncing now. One more thing I forgot is actually the voiceover. This is from an old Minecraft trailer, and I just downloaded it and then got rid of the background music using an AI voice isolator. So I just added this to the intro. And also, if your clips have any music, you can just get rid of them using the audio on the left like that. So yeah, this is what it looks like so far.
Do, with no rules to follow. This adventure, it's up to you.
So now that that's done, to lock in, like if you're happy with how your clips are synced and lined up, you now want to pre-comp each of your clips. So in this case, you can either right click and then go pre-compose, or you can press Ctrl-Shift-C and then select the bottom one, move all attributes into new comp and tick it. And this is basically going to turn each of these into its own individual clip, because at the moment After Effects thinks that this is still one long video and you can accidentally move it and it can move out of place. And then also when we do our Timeremapping later, you'll see why it's important we do this, so it doesn't start getting frames from like way out of where we actually want. So just go through and pre-comp all of these to lock it in place. So now that we've finished with that, we pretty much have the base of the edit completed, and we can now move on to our Twixtor and Timeremapping. So I'll show you three different methods. You've got the Twixtor speed method, Timeremapping, and then I'll also show you a way without Twixtor. But I do recommend you get it if you don't have it, because it's used for like everything. It is a paid plugin, but there are always ways to get it for free. It's up to you what you want to do. So we're going to start with the speed method. So for your Twixtor settings, we're going to want to tick in FPS is out FPS. If you don't have this tick, just change it to the comp frame rate, which is 60 in this case. Motion vectors best, image prep, change it to contrast, frame interp to motion mode blend, and warping to inverse with smart blend. There are other combinations of settings that you can use, but this is just what I use personally. To start, you want to hit the speed keyframe and then press U on your keyboard to bring up speed, and then change the speed to something like 200, and then go to the middle and change the speed to a slower value. I'll go like 25 for now, and then go to the end and change it to 200. So now we have this speed ramp going here, but as you can see, it's going black at the end, and this is basically the clip running out of frames because we've sped it up too much. So I'll just adjust this. I reckon like 180, 25, and 180 will work. And if it's still black on the last frame, you can just move the keyframes out, but you don't actually have to have this last keyframe past the end of the clip. You can just put it at the end, because this is just determining speed, not the frame. I should lower that down a bit. Okay, so that seems like it's good. So we can highlight these keyframes, press F9, go into your graph, and then what we want to do is change it to a U shape, kind of like that. So this is just starting at 180% speed, slowing down to 25, and then speeding back up to 180 or 170, and that's pretty much it. The benefit to this method is if you're doing just a simple edit like this, you can just copy the keyframes, go to the start of the next clip, and you can just paste the same exact velocity onto all your clips. So press U to bring up the keyframes, and you want to highlight them, and then you can hold Alt to drag the keyframes together. This will maintain the shape of the graph, so it's staying the same. So yeah, this method's fine for something like this. It's faster as well. You can get the same speed ramp onto all your clips, and this is what it looks like. But in my opinion, it doesn't have as much control as the other method, because you're just kind of adjusting the speed. You don't really know what frames you're looking at, and you can't really see the end. So now I'm going to show you the Timeremapping method, which is what I use personally for my actual edits. So what you want to do is get your Twixtor and just firstly apply it onto all your clips. So I've just copied and pasted that onto all of them. So starting with the first clip, what you want to do is pre-comp it. So you can either do that by right clicking and going pre-compose, or pressing Ctrl+Shift+C and select the bottom one here, move all attributes into the new comp, and then tick this. And this is basically just embedding the Twixtor inside this composition. So what we want to do now is enable Timeremapping. We can either do that by right clicking, going time, enable Timeremapping, or just pressing Ctrl+Alt+T. And now you can see these two keyframes. So this first keyframe is the start of the clip, and this final keyframe is the last frame of the clip. So if we drag these two together, you can see it's now speeding up. Now it's turning black at the end. So if we drag this out, this is now slowing down the clip. So we're just going to leave it exactly where it was. And then we're going to want to highlight them, press F9, and then go into your graph editor. And then we want to make a graph that looks like an S. So something like that is good. You can see, I think that already looks better than the speed graph method, and it was a lot easier to just set up. And another reason why I like it is just the customizability. So let's say here I just wanted to drag this up, drag this down, so now it's actually going to start reversing here. As you can see, like no matter what we change to this graph, it's always going to end on this frame. So now if you're happy with how your graph looks, we can go back out and just cut off the end of the clip. Now the reason why we embed the Twixtor in here, this is basically our frame interpolation. So if we go in and disable it, as you can see, it's now lagging a lot in the middle. There's no interpolation going on. So because it's embedded, the Twixtor is basically acting underneath this comp, and any slowing down we do on top is getting influenced by the Twixtor. So once it's done, I usually like to pre-compose it again, but just for the sake of the tutorial, I'll just leave it out. I'll show you the whole process again on the next clip. So you've got your Twixtor, you want to pre-compose it. Now bring up your Timeremapping, highlight your keyframes, press F9, graph editor, and then just make the S graph that you're after. And then cut off the end. And that's it. Now if you have FlowScript, this makes the whole process a bit quicker. So you can just pre-compose it, Ctrl+Alt+T, and on the right here, this is FlowScript. You can highlight the keyframes and just apply whatever graph that you want here, and this will automatically apply it onto this clip. So I didn't even have to go into the graph editor, it just did it for me. So if we go in, we can see it's automatically applied. So I'm just going to go through and do this for all the rest of the clips, and I'll go back to you when it's done. And that's pretty much it. You can choose whichever way you want. Honestly, for something like this, the speed method is completely fine. It's probably faster, but this is just my personal preference. Now also I'll show you without Twixtor. So if you don't have Twixtor, you can still do this. You just need to do it on your actual base clips. You don't want to pre-compose anything, because After Effects does have its own built-in frame interpolation on the left here. So you want to double click this. This enables frame interp. And then we want to Ctrl+T to bring up our Timeremapping. And because this is an entire video still, we didn't pre-compose it. So we just want to set our start and end keyframes so that After Effects knows that this is where we want to apply our graph. Then we want to highlight them, press F9, go into your graph editor. And this is the reason why we pre-compose and use Twixtor, because as you can see, After Effects still recognizes the rest of the footage. So it sees the keyframe of the actual end over here. So we just want to zoom in to the little part that we've marked out here, and then we can apply our graph like this. So yeah, this is what we get from that. It works fine. And once you've finished it, you just want to select it and then pre-compose it to lock it in. So yeah, that's if you don't have Twixtor. So now that we've finished our time remapping, we can move on to our transitions. So before we begin, we want to make sure we enable motion blur on all our clips. So just go through and make sure that's all enabled. And we want to now go over to our first clip and then press S on our keyboard to bring up scale. Set a keyframe in the beginning for 100, go to the end, and then change it to like 200, or actually maybe I'll go like 180. I think that's what I used before. We now have a linear zoom in our clip, and we want to adjust the graph. So highlight the keyframes, press F9, go into your graph editor, and we want to make a graph that looks like an S as well. But we don't want it to be as extreme. So for example, the first keyframe should not be that far up like this, because as you can see, the clip is now very zoomed in, like 130–40%. To be honest, it's up to you what you want, but the way I did my zooms is making this less extreme in the beginning and then zooming out more towards the end, like that. And that's pretty much it. And another thing you want to do is make sure that the final frame for the scale is actually one past the end of the last frame of the clip. So in this case, this is actually the last frame of this clip, and this is the first frame of the next clip. So if you don't do this, then this frame here, because this is the final frame, the motion blur doesn't have a next frame to go off of, so the motion blur will actually be a bit different. So you just want to make sure that this is one past. And now that you've done that, you just want to copy your scale, Control C, and then go over to your next clips. Make sure your playhead is at the beginning, and then just copy them onto all of your clips. And now that you've copied your scale, we just want to press U, and then go to your scales and highlight them, and hold Alt while you do this and drag them together to the end of the clip. If you don't do this and just drag it like this, and you go into your graph, you'll see that the graph is now changed. We don't want that. So we just want to highlight both, hold Alt, and if we go inside, we can see the graph is being maintained. So go through and do this for the rest of the clips. Okay, and now with that done, we have all our zoom ins in place. Now we're going to do some adjustments, because obviously if you've got only zoom ins, it can get a bit repetitive, and also some clips are kind of panning out like this one while it's zooming in, so you don't really want that. So the way to do this is by making a zoom out, and we're just going to swap the keyframes around. So for example, here, we're just going to drag this out like this, and then drag this one across. So now it's starting at 180, and then slowing down to 100. Go into your graph editor again, and change our graph because it will have shifted after swapping the keyframes. So drag this first one down, and this final one, because it's a zoom out, we want this to be a bit lower so that it's not as zoomed in during the main portion of the clip. So this looks alright. And now that you've done your zoom out, we can just plop this onto whatever clip that you want a zoom out to be. Say for example, I want a zoom out on this clip here. What we want to do is just delete the zoom in, paste the zoom out, stretch it out to fit to the clip. As you can see, it is now on this clip. But because this clip is actually panning in, like if we go inside it, we can see it's panning in. What we want to do is just time reverse this. So we're going to go into the actual base video layer of the clip. Now we can right click, go to time, and then time reverse layer. And this will basically just reverse it. So now if you go back out, as you can see, it is now reversed. So basically I'm going to go through and just paste the zoom out onto whatever clips I want to. And you can kind of alternate between them. Like sometimes you can have a zoom out and then a zoom in and a zoom out. So now that we've finished our velocity and transitions, before we move on to the next step, we want to do our rotational shake. So to do this, we want to select layer, new, and create a new null object. And we want to cut this at the start of the edit, go to the end, and cut it off at the end of the edit. And now we want to select the first clip, select the last clip while holding shift, and then grab the pick whip and parent it to the null. So now as you can see, all of these clips are parent linked to this null layer. And what this does is basically makes all the clips follow whatever transform properties this null has. So for example, if we want to scale this down, now all of the clips are following it. or we want to keyframe it to slowly get larger and larger. As you can see, they're all following whatever this null has in place. And this works for rotation as well, which is what we're going to use it for. So to start off, we want to select the null, press R on our keyboard, and then click the stopwatch and set the first keyframe to something like 2. And then go forward about like 1.5 seconds, and then set it to -2. We want this to be quite subtle, so don't make it too quick. And then we want to highlight them and press F9 on our keyboard. And now we've got it slowly turning like that. But to make it loop for the rest of the edit, instead of just taking this and then copying it there and then taking this and then copying it there, I mean, that works, to be honest. But if your edit is like quite long and you don't want to do that, what you can do is hold Alt, press the stopwatch to bring up expressions, and now we can type loop out, and inside the parentheses we can type ping pong, and this will basically loop whatever animation we have here, and this will keep looping for the rest of the null, just looping back and forth between these 2 keyframes. So if we play it now, looks pretty nice, and we didn't have to copy keyframes for the rest of the null. So another thing I wanted to mention quickly is that if you go to the start of some of the clips, you can see that now because of the rotation, we are now showing some borders. And to fix this, we can just go over to the null, press S, and like increase a little bit to like 102. We're going to put black bars on top anyway, so the ones above and below don't really matter. But if you don't want to put black bars on later, you can just increase this up to like 106 and to hide them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the rotational shake. So now the next step is to do the effects. Now this edit doesn't actually have many effects at all. In fact, it only has one. I'll show you how to do that. So first you want to grab an adjustment layer with Ctrl-Alt-Y, or you can go Layer, New, and Adjustment Layer. And we're just going to cut this to something like this. You don't want to make it much longer than the length of your shortest clip. And we're just going to put this on top here. I'll actually shorten this a bit because I think that's a bit too long. So what we're going to do is select it and search for Lens Blur. The one I'm going to use is Lens Blur OBS. It's a BCC plugin. If you don't have this, you can just use Camera Lens Blur, and that works fine as well. Add it to your clip, and we're going to set iris scale in the middle to something like 7, and then go to the start of the adjustment layer and then change it to 0. Then go to the end and then change it to 0 as well. So now we want to highlight the keyframes, F9, go to the graph editor and change it to something like that. And now we have a nice little blur between our clips. I'll actually increase that a bit to 8. So next we want to add our exposure. So just search for exposure, and we're going to set the first keyframe to 0, go to the middle, change it to 1, and then go to the end and change it to 0. And now we want to adjust the graph. So F9, graph editor, and again, make the graph a similar shape to the one we did before. So now if we look at it, we should have a nice lens blur transition. There we go. And now we can just Control-C and Control-V and paste it in between the rest of the clips. Once you've copied it, another tip as well is that you can do Control-Alt-V and it'll paste at where the playhead is. So you don't have to, just press Control-V and it pastes above it back over here. And now that I've finished copying the effects, this is what it's looking like. So now that we've finished with the main part of the edit, we can now move on to our text. So I leave text till last because I don't like doing text. But, it's got to be done. So we're going to select the text panel up here and then just click on our screen. And now we want to type whatever the voiceover says here.
No one can tell you what you can or cannot do.
So we're just going to double click it and enter that. So I'm just going to drag this above a little bit. I'm going to overlay onto the next clip. First, enable your motion blur. Go over to your character panel. If you don't have character, go over to window and then select character. You can also have a look at it in properties and text. First, you want to make sure your paragraph is aligned so that when you create a new line like this, you can see it's centered. So go over to your character window. The font I use is Lemon Milk, and in this case, medium. The size I think I'm going to keep at 75. Once you're happy with how it looks, you want to come over to your Align tab and then just align it horizontally and vertically to center it. Once you're done with that, we want to add the effects. So I'm going to search for Deep Glow. This is one of the best glows. It's a plugin. If you don't have it, I'd recommend you get it. I'll go for like 0.5 or maybe like 0.35 maybe. And now we want to add drop shadow afterwards. So I'm going to crank this up to 100%, change the distance, something like that, then adjust the softness. So now we have our text glowing. Next we want to add our animation. So go over to your effects and presets and search for slow fade on. And this is a preset text animation. So we can just apply it and then press U. And as you can see,
I can tell you what you can or cannot do.
It's already applied. Now you can just adjust the keyframes however you want. And for the out animation, we want to search for fade out slow. And now we can just drag these keyframes together just the same. So for my in animation, I've got it around halfway, and same thing for the out animation. But if you want to get it so one of them starts fading in while the other one's fading out, you just want to overlay it a little bit like this. Another thing we want to add is our tracking. So to do this, open up the text panel, then you want to hit animate and then go to tracking. Now over here is our tracking for the text. This will make it expand outwards. You want to set a keyframe in the beginning at 0, then go to the end of the clip and then change it to something like 15. As you can see now,
No one can tell you what you can or cannot do.
it should be slowly expanding. I think I'm going to actually come over here and change the spacing to 0 so it's a little bit tighter. So yeah, that's basically it for how to do your text. If you want to change the color, for example, you want to change cannot, select the layer, highlight cannot, go over to character, and then with this highlighted, you want to change it to the color you want. I might do the same thing for no one, but change it to like a light blue. So something like that.
I can tell you what you can or cannot do.
Now this is our first text layer. Now to do it for the next few sentences, we're just going to select it, press Ctrl D to copy it, and then come over here, and then whatever he says here,
With no rules to follow.
we're just going to adjust the length of the text to the next line, and then bring together all of our keyframes. So after adjusting it a bit, this is what I got for the second text layer.
With no rules to follow.
So I've just kind of made this a bit longer than what the actual sentence is, so that it has some time to kind of fade out. And now I'll do the same thing for the final two. And now for the final part of this text here. If you want to increase the size of just one of the words, you want to come over to drop down here, go to animate, animate scale, and then with this animator, and now you want to adjust the starting position. So as you can see, this little red marker, I'm just going to bring it to about there. And as you can see, as we adjust the scale, it's only adjusting the scale for the U word. So I'm going to actually keyframe the scale here at the start of the layer, go to the end of the layer, and then I'm going to end it at like 130. I'll go back to the beginning and change it to 100. I'm going to need to increase the tracking of this a little bit so it's not as tight.
It's up to you.
So now U is increasing in size, but I'm going to adjust the graph here so it actually does it towards the end. So something like this, so it slowly like builds up and kind of like pops at the end. So yeah, I've now finished with the text. This is how all the text layers are looking, and this is what the whole edit looks like now.
No one can tell you what you can or cannot do. With no rules to follow. This adventure, it's up to you.
And one more thing I forgot is putting the lens blur exposure transitions on the intro as well, in between each clip. So now that we've done all of that, it's time for the final stage of the edit. So we are now almost done with the edit. We just have to do our CC and black bars. Once you're happy with all of this and it's all set up nicely, what you want to do is just select all of your layers and then pre-compose everything. So now we have our pre-composed edit. What we want to do is add 2 layers, one solid layer and then also an adjustment layer. So we're just going to cut these at the end, and then we want to put the black solid above the adjustment layer. For the black bars, we want to search for CC jaws and adjust the completion to about 85% and then change the height to 0. So now we have some bars on our edit. You can adjust how much you want. Moving on to the final part of the edit, which is the CC, color correction. We're going to search for looks. So this is a Red Giant plugin, Magic Bullet Looks. You don't need to use this. You can just search for like saturation and vignette and whatever and do it manually. But this is what I'm going to use. So we want to go into the edit tab and then come over to tools, and we want to add a few things. So this is what I got: some hue and saturation, contrast, lens distortion, vignette and softness. So for the saturation, I'm just going to increase this a little bit to like 120. Contrast can go up a bit, like 140. See, all of this is just preference. You're just going to mess around with it and figure out what looks good for your clips. For the lens distortion, I'm actually just going to make this pull out very slightly. It's like -5, so it just gets a little bit of warp around the corners. For the vignette, I'm just going to leave that as is actually. And then for the edge softness, I'm going to increase the quality a little bit. I'll adjust like the radius a little bit and the aspect. So that's looking alright. And now, once we come out of that, this is our looks applied. But one more thing, we need to add some curves. And this is basically just adjusting the highlights and the shadows. So if you increase the higher part of the curves, you can see the brighter parts of the video are increasing. And if you decrease the bottom part of the line, the shadows will get darker. So you can just adjust this a little bit and play around with it until you find what you like. So I think this is fine, just like a light little S shape. So now for the final part of the CC, we can add our sharpen and unsharp mask. So add some sharpen and change this to like 30, and then add some unsharp mask. Now you can change the amount to like 10 and increase the radius a bit, like 40. So if you go to full resolution, you can see what this is doing is just making the image a bit clearer, giving it some clarity. And now the whole edit is basically completed. So I'll show you the completed edit right now.
No one can tell you what you can or cannot do, with no rules to follow. This adventure, it's up to you.
And just before we finish, there's one more thing. On your CC, if you zoom into the corners here, you can see there's a little line of pixels. So I usually just add a transform onto the adjustment layer and then increase it by like 0.1. This should hide that little border. I'm not sure if it actually shows up when it's rendered, but anyway, I just add that there. And also set your in and out points like this. And then once it's done, go up to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And as you can see, here it is. We want to change the output module to whatever you want. But for me, I use QuickTime, and then I use ProRes 422. You won't be able to play this with your normal video apps, but I'll then render this and then upscale it in Topaz to get like 4K and whatever. So yeah, choose your file location, hit render, and you're pretty much done. So yeah, that's basically it for the whole edit. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and if you guys like, I might do more in the future, maybe. If you have any questions about anything, leave them in the comments and I'll try to help where I can. I pretty much read all of them. And yeah, if you're new, I make edits, mostly AMVs and cartoons, sometimes movies. I put a lot of time into them, so check them out if you want to. And yeah, apart from that, thank you all for 10,000 subscribers. I'll be posting more edits soon. I hope this helped, and have a good one.
No one can tell you what you can or cannot do, with no rules to follow. This adventure, it's up to you.